Sunday, the 22nd day of August, 2010. We're going to be here for the next 2 hours, and we just have a ton of incredibly important news that I want to go over today. But I also want to open the phones up for everyone with specific questions. Now, I rarely open the phones up and say, hey, if you call, I want you to comment on this particular issue. But at least in the first hour today, if you call, please give me your take on this issue. How many times do we have to be lied to by government and mainstream corporate media to stop trusting these people and realize they're a bunch of crooks that don't have our best interest at heart? And what are some of the biggest lies that they've been caught in over and over again? Not just government and media and politicians, but corporations as well. And how long are people going to put up with it? You see the population beginning to wake up, beginning to become aware of what's happening. We're going to open the phones up today on this issue. The toll-free number to join us is 888-201-2244, 888-201-2244, and we will get you up and on the air today. You're also welcome to comment after you give me your view on those questions I just threw out there. Is how many lies will we put up with? Why do some people put up with lies and just accept it and say that's the way it is? But if your neighbor or your spouse or your boss or your employee or your pastor got caught doing things like this, no one would associate with them. Well, we can't get rid of the government. It runs our lives. But we can certainly reduce its size and change the system back to the Bill of Rights and Constitution. But it's going to be a long, hard road. So I want to get your view on why do they lie to us so much? Why do some people put up with it? What are some of the big lies? And what do you think the biggest lies are? And how big is this awakening that's happening right now? I mean, everybody admits there's a major political realignment happening. You know, the Bilderberg Group is now major news every day. People are waking up to shadowy government forces and special interest. I want to have a basic discussion on those major issues. Now, when we come back from break, in the long segment coming up, we're going to talk about more of the lies, more of the propaganda, more of the deception, like the claim that all combat operations are over in Iraq. We heard that 7 years ago from Bush. We're now hearing it from Obama, but all they're doing is changing the names of the combat brigades to a new designation, a security force assistance group, but they're still going to be in combat. They're still going to be dying. They're still going to be wounded. So they're semantically manipulating there. So we'll be discussing that. Also, other lies. They claim that Julian Assange had raped and molested women. And within an hour of saying it Saturday, they backed off and said it was completely untrue. But our media is basically still running with it. More and more, I've been studying the WikiLeaks situation. And I think WikiLeaks are good people. I think the 92,000 documents they were given, obviously a lot of it has propaganda. A lot of warfare internally is putting disinfo, overstating a threat to get more funding. And so some of the reports themselves they released are disinformation. All of it's suspect, but WikiLeaks has done a lot of good work. And one of the favorite government tactics to throw at people is, oh, they're government agents too. And we've looked at that and investigated it and heard all sides on it. But I just don't agree with it, and now they're talking about indicting Julian Assange, and so more and more I think that he's a good guy and that WikiLeaks are good folks, but they have been manipulated a bit, but nobody's perfect. That happens to everybody. Also, later in the next hour, there's a huge spectrum of news out there where it's confirmed by the scientists out in the Gulf and others that the leak is still ongoing. Just fractures in the floor of the sea. And Obama's saying there's no health problems. We know that's a lie. We're going to break down the fact that the oil well's still leaking and that they haven't gotten rid of 70% of the oil, as they've said, and a bunch of other news. It's all coming up after this quick break. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome, my friends. Thank you for joining us on this Sunday, the 22nd day of August, 2010. We're going to be here live for the next 2 hours, as we are every Sunday with the abbreviated broadcast. And I'm back Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, live Again, I want to thank all of the new affiliates that are picking up the weekday broadcast and the Sunday evening transmission. Thank you for joining us. We're going to have wide open phones on any of the news items, any of the issues that I'm about to raise this evening. But first, I want to throw this question out to listeners. And you're welcome to call in about any subject you want. Any of the news I cover, any news you want to talk about, any questions, any comments you have for me. But occasionally I do ask listeners to give me their take on something. So I would like you to first give me your take on why do so many people accept government and media and corporations lying to them and doing illegal things and all sorts of skullduggery over and over again. And then now as a society, a lot of people go, yeah, the government's bad, it's corrupt, it's out of control, but that's just what they do. This has become the new attitude that we just accept that government's out of control and government doesn't have any checks and balances on it, and that government can do whatever it wants. And government at all levels is giving its minions directives to basically knock the heads of the public and push the public around and train us that we're there to serve them and the offshore banking interests that control the government. So why do people put up with lies, even if they're angry about it? They kind of just give into it, like a woman who's, you know, in an abusive relationship or something. Have we had our will broken? Are we cowed as a society, or is there a big awakening taking place? We know it's big. The question is how big? And what are some of those mega lies that we've heard and seen from government and corporations and media where they've been proven that they were stonewalling and deceiving by design? I've got a list I want to go over coming up at the bottom of the hour. And what do you think the biggest lie of the last 100 years or so from major governments and media and corporations has been? The toll-free number to join us on this live Sunday edition is 888-201-2244. Again, that number is 888-201-2244, and we will get you up and on the air today. Now, let me just briefly go over each of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 stacks of news I have here. Let me just at least read to you some of the headlines, and then I'm going to try to plow back into these. But just to give you an idea of why I get so frustrated, this is just the news that I brought in today from doing some research over the weekend, and the news that my crew printed for me to read before I went live on air. This is just a small snapshot of what's going on. We're being told that all major combat operations are over in Iraq and that the troops have all been pulled out. It's a total and complete lie. Combat brigades in Iraq under different name. That's the Army Times admitting this. Throughout the last week, I told you it was a fraud. Now the AP, Army Times, and others admit they've just changed their names. They did rotate some troops out. Most of them are going to Afghanistan, but there's still a major force there. We'll be talking about that. Also, Julian Assange of WikiLeaks, for a few hours they claimed that he'd raped and molested women. Turns out none of it's true. It's a complete, total lie. Kind of like they said Rand Paul 2 weeks ago had kidnapped this woman. Turned out that was a total lie. But it doesn't matter. Still, that idea is out there with the people, and that's associated with his name. And he's saying he believes the Pentagon may be behind the rape claims, that he'd been warned that they'd try to set him up with something with a sexual twist, because all the ninnies and showing circles out there love to buy into it. So we'll be getting into that. Obviously, on the whole military front, Iran fires up its Bashir reactor, promises painful response if attacked, and has launched a new attack drone. And Israel more and more is talking about attacking Iran, which will clearly lead to massive crisis in the Middle East and Central Asia and a huge increase in oil prices. U.S. assures Israel that Iran's threat is not imminent. Well, Israel's a nuclear power. They know it's not imminent. They know the Russians built the Bashir reactor. They know that at full power, running 24/7, that they might get enough plutonium in 5 years to build a bomb. So it's not imminent. And the Russians have a contract and are running the plant to take the fuel rods out when they're done with them. So, I mean, what are the Iranians going to do? Stick the Russians up? You'll put a gun to their head and say, give me that uranium, and then go throw a bomb together like a ham sandwich? It doesn't work like that, okay? So we'll be going over those reports as well. Israel says the Iranian reactor is totally unacceptable. Iran unveils the ambassador of death bomber. I shouldn't laugh. It's just so ridiculous because Ahmadinejad is saying it's an ambassador of peace, and the name of the weapon is the ambassador of death. It's just ridiculous. We're not the only country that's got leaders with Orwellian statements. Israel says jets and drones enter Lebanon space in the first time in several years. Israel tells UN it will stop a new Gaza aid flotilla coming out of Turkey, this time manned completely by women. So it'll be a bigger PR disaster for Israel when they board and attack that ship, but Israel doesn't care. They're going ahead with it. So that's all just some of the news that we're going to be covering on that military front today. Coming up later in the next hour, I want to spend at least a segment on this. Senior NOAA scientist admits he lied that Gulf spill oil is gone, puts administration spill disclosure credibility in question. And it's all over the news in the last week that when the federal government through the Department of NOAA came out and said, look, don't worry, 70% of the oil spill's gone, that was a complete lie. And then a lot of different university heads and major oceanographers and scientists came out and said, look, you just sprayed 40-plus million gallons of core exit on it and made the oil stop floating on the water and go underwater. The stuff's coming in on the beaches, and you're telling everybody that the oil spill's 70% cleaned up, but you're not just lying about that. You're also lying about the fact that up to 20 miles away there's fissures in the ocean floor, and that BP shaft that was drilled by the Deepwater Horizon has shattered. And we've known this for months now, and is leaking all over the ocean floor. And so their new way to deal with it, their new way to handle it, is to just say, doesn't exist, 70% of the oil's been cleaned up, and there's no fissures on the floor, and everything's fine. And then last week, BP came out and said, okay, there are some fissures nearby, but those are other areas leaking, oil naturally coming up from the floor, jetting and blasting out. And so out of sight, out of mind. I mean, they tell you there's no longer any combat troops or combat in Iraq. Doesn't matter if they've increased the contractors and private operatives. Doesn't matter if they've renamed 50,000 troops as combat assistance brigades, not combat brigades. They're combat assistance brigades. Kind of like we lost 4,000 to 6,000 troops from 1960 to 1964 before they kicked off the official Vietnam police operation. It was never declared a war. But before the conflict became official with the Gulf of Tonkin staged event, where they claimed that our ships were attacked, that's declassified, that was staged now. Of course, that's another big government lie. For decades, 40 years, in fact, they said that our ships had been attacked, and that it was conspiracy theories, that people on board the destroyers had said that no one attacked the ships and it was all staged. And on the 40th anniversary, a few years ago, 2004, they released all the LBJ audio tapes with McNamara, and they released the documents, and the CIA admitted they staged the whole thing, and no one was attacked. Another big lie. 58,000 dead Americans, hundreds and hundreds of thousands seriously maimed, and they're getting ready with a new fake war claiming Iran has got nukes. You think our economy's bankrupt now, you wait till they attack Iran and oil prices double or triple. You wait till real terrorists from Iran start actually responding and blowing stuff up. The globalists running our government are going to love it. They're all in their armored compounds. They're going to use those attacks to turn America into a total and complete police state. Okay, I got a bunch of other news coming up on the economy. Stay with us.